Quiet on the set.
Here we go.
After the AP exam, if we exempt some of our other exams, that's review week. Do we have to come?
Yes, because we're going to be covering more stuff. We're going to do human evolution and we're going to do global warming. So you have to be here after the AP exam.
For how long? Yeah.
Until
School's out.
the end of school.
So until exams.
I'm excited.
Okay. This is these are the zones of a lake, and you need to know the names of them. The zone of the lake that's nearest the shore is called the littoral zone. And the littoral zone usually has a bunch of plants with a bunch of organisms clinging to the plants and a bunch of organisms like fish that eat those organisms. So you have a whole food chain here in the littoral zone of a lake.
It's quite literal.
Now, the limnetic zone is the zone of a lake that's out, the open water zone, I guess we should say. But the limnetic zone is where light can penetrate. So, there's all types of organisms floating around here in the limnetic zone. The smallest organisms, the producers in the limnetic zone, are called phytoplankton. Yes?
Did you say the limnetic zone is the zone that light can penetrate?
That light can penetrate, yes. Light can penetrate the limnetic zone.
Not the littoral zone?
And the littoral zone, yeah. Both of these are shallow enough for light to penetrate. But out here, there aren't any plants because it's too deep. There aren't any rooted plants. So what you have floating around here are phytoplankton, which are little tiny algae that do photosynthesis and create food. And then you have these little organisms, they're called zooplankton or zooplankton. And they're little microscopic organisms that eat the phytoplankton. So what trophic level would the phytoplankton be, do you think?
Level 1, producer.
Level 1, the producer. What trophic level are the zooplankton?
2.
Number 2, consumers.
Level 2, they're consumers, they eat the phytoplankton. And then you have fish, they eat the zooplankton, and now you've got a food chain.
What is plankton?
Plankton means floating around. Planktonic is an organism that floats around with the current.
Oh, and so what does this phyto mean?
Phyto is the plant-like, and zoo is the animal-like.
So is zooplankton carnivorous?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, no, they're herbivorous.
Really?
They eat the phytoplankton.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's kind of confusing.
Now, there's probably some of them that eat one another.
Yeah.
Those are little tiny microscopic organisms floating around. And when these things die, their dead bodies float down to the bottom. And down here, this is called the profundal zone. This is the area of a lake that's so deep that light cannot penetrate. You only find a profundal zone in very deep lakes or very dirty, muddy lakes that light can't go far down. And there are still creatures, worms and such. There's a lobster that crawls around on the bottom. Thank you, sir. I have a quiz for you.
Don't play that.
Get 10 minutes. Little organisms crawl around on the bottom and they eat the dead things that fall from the top. And then the benthic zone is the area where the mud, basically the surface of the sediment, the surface of the mud, we call that the benthic zone. Benthic, the word benthic means bottom, means down. So that's what's crawling around in the mud and on the mud. So those are the zones of a lake. Let me see what this is. I'm not really sure what this is. I don't know if I want to watch it or not. Oh, we can watch it.
Yeah, that'd be good. Full screen?
Oh, no sound.
Ecosystems that are part land and part water. The Everglades in South Florida is America's best-known wetland. Its unique system is dependent on an abiotic factor, an adequate flow of water through it. An adequate water supply supports grasses and other plants, which in turn support aquatic organisms that provide food for a variety of animals, including birds, snakes, and deer.
Ah, we love the Everglades.
This should be a field trip.
Yeah.
Do we have time for a field trip this year?
No, we don't.
Oh, okay.
Now, let's look at the zones of the ocean. Now, the ocean has an area called the intertidal zone. That's the area between, inter means between. So intertidal means between the tides. So the high tide line is way up here. The low tide line is down here. And so there are various organisms that can only live in certain areas of the tidal zones. If you're interested in this stuff, you can take marine bio, where we go out and we study all these different organisms that live in different spots of the ocean. That's first semester next year. The continental shelf is an area here that is kind of flat, and that's the edge of the continent. So this would be like North America here, and there's this continental shelf, and then it drops off. And we call that the continental slope, and eventually it reaches the bottom, the abyssal plain. Now, the area that light can penetrate in the ocean is called the euphotic zone. And the area that light cannot penetrate is called the aphotic zone. They don't put that on here, but that's what it's called. Aphotic means no light. Euphotic means true light. Again, just like in the lakes, there's a bunch of plankton floating around here near the top of the ocean that do photosynthesis and make food. Phytoplankton, and then they're eaten by the zooplankton. So it's the same sort of food chain in the ocean as is in the lakes.
What's the other zone called when light can't reach?
Aphotic.
Euphotic and
Euphotic is where light can reach, and aphotic is where it can't. Now, the life zones of the ocean are separated into three main regions: the epipelagic zone, the mesopelagic zone, and the bathypelagic zone. Epipelagic means near the top, mesopelagic means in the middle, and bathypelagic means near the bottom.
Sperm web, is that far down?
Well, a sperm whale is usually at the top, but it can dive down that deep, so that's why they put it in this picture.
Yeah.
Sperm whales are famous deep divers.
Yeah. They eat like giant squid. And
They try to catch these squid and eat them.
Soccer was supposed to check out like 5 minutes ago.
Are you serious? And are you a soccer player? Why don't you run down and ask her if she'll announce it?
Alright.
Are you the only soccer player in here?
Nope.
Yeah, I saw Lucy and some other people.
Alright, go ahead.
With bags.
I trust you. Make sure you read the end of this
How
chapter.
big are bags?
Look, don't lose. You know what?
How big are bags?
Get in my cave. Where is she?
Mr. Willis,
Yes?
how big are viper fish?
Or what fish?
Viper fish?
I've never even heard of a viper fish until you just asked it.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It looks pretty big, but it's probably not nearly as big as a whale. Can you shut that door for me, please? This shows the ocean currents, and the ocean currents are influenced by the turn of the earth. Basically, because of the turn of the earth, you get a big circular current that moves around in the ocean. We call that the Coriolis effect. Have you ever heard of that?
Mm-hmm.
It actually goes like this in the northern hemisphere. It goes clockwise in the northern hemisphere, and it goes counterclockwise in the southern hemisphere.
It's crazy.
We call that the Coriolis effect. Like what?
Up together, right?
Yeah, they say that, but that's an old wives' tale. That's not true.
Well, tornadoes.
Tornadoes and hurricanes do
Yeah.
spin that way. It has to be a big system to be affected by the slow rotation of the Earth. So a little system like a toilet's not gonna matter.
Real quick, this is going back to the other one's kind of random question, but if a sperm whale hunts squid, as a sperm whale try to eat a person?
I don't know.
I mean, if it eats.
You've read too much
Probably
Moby Dick.
could.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to crawl in a sperm whale's mouth. They might eat. They got big teeth and they can eat. Squid are way bigger than giant squid are way bigger than people. So yeah, they might get a person.
That's what happened in Moby Dick, right?
That's right.
Because Captain Ahab was wounded by the white whale.
I don't know if anyone has ever been.
Yeah.
You can see the way the currents do. We have the Gulf Stream that goes by here, where the warm waters coming up from the equator come up this way, and that's why our water is so warm on the coast. If you go to California and try and swim over there, the currents come from the north where it's cold and come down, and so their water is always cold year round. You need a wetsuit really to swim on the beach over there, or you got to be really tough. But here we get nice warm water. So it just depends on where you are. I went to the Galapagos Islands, which are right about there, and it's on the equator, so you would expect the water to be warm, but it's not, because there's this cold current that comes up like this off the coast of South America, and the water there is cold, not warm at all. We wore wetsuits when we did all of our snorkeling. There were some people who didn't, but a little guy like me needs a wetsuit. I can't keep in heat as much as those big guys. So anyway, interesting stuff about the ocean. So you read about the oceans and aquatic life, the rest of chapter 46. And remember, this last test is only 2 little chapters, so maybe you could do well on that. And I want to show you my rainforest pictures.
Let's see them.
Let me see if I can call those up here. Let's first change our screen resolution. It was at 1280 800. Can you remember that for me?
1288.
1280 800. That was the old resolution.
That's why you're changing it.
Changing it so I can get big. Here we go.
You could just.
Big picture. Whoops.
You could just set really high resolution, low one, just make it bigger, but.
I need it bigger. These pictures are small for some reason. This is a very old. This is called Hyper Studio. It's what came before PowerPoint, and all my pictures are on Hyper Studio. And it's smaller on these new computers. Here we go, Ecuador. 2001. So there's us on the bus. I'm with this school group that has kids and teachers from Atlanta. And we stayed in this hotel when we got to Quito, which is the capital of Ecuador. It's a really cool hotel.
Quito.
There's our beds. It's not focused very well. This was with a real camera. This is before digital cameras were big. So anyway, there's a little
When did
restaurant.
you go?
What's that?
When did you go?
We went 2001.
The digital cameras are the big that have.
Yeah?
I was taking the film camera.
Yeah, this is a film camera. This was right. I think a couple people had a digital camera, but they weren't any good.
Yeah.
In Quito, there's a bunch of volcanoes outside, and that's a picture of one of them. There's another one.
Did you climb it?
No, we didn't do any mountain climbing. But we got on this bus, and it took us out, and then we got off the bus, and we started hiking down this trail, this mountain trail. and just get deeper and deeper into the forest. It was about a 10-mile hike. I mean, it took us all day. And there we are hiking to this rainforest station. And you can see this forest. It's not forest like you see here. It's mountain forest. And we're on our way. That's a field right there that people have cleared out to plant crops. It's on a mountain, on the side of a mountain. They do it wherever they can.
Probably cocoa.
And we're hiking along. There's me by an old house that's been abandoned. And we keep hiking. There's this guy right here was a bird watcher, an amateur bird watcher, and he was looking for birds the whole trip. You know how many new birds he found on the trip that he'd never seen before?
None.
0.
Nailed it.
No new birds. He heard a bunch of them, but he never saw any.
Wow.
There's one of the birds. He said, "No, I've already seen that." Somehow he knew all the birds he'd
Cool
seen.
picture.
Isn't that pretty?
What is that? Butterfly.
Butterfly. They had wild horses running around in these woods, in this forest.
The horses just kind of like leave y'all alone?
Yeah, they just sit there. You come right up to them. There's the little station where we were staying. That's our house in the forest. Look at the forest around it. And we stayed there for a week. That's taken from on top of a hill outside on the way there. You like come over this hill and you're like, there it is. Pretty cool. There it is up close when we got there. There's a dog there that kind of hung out. There's a family that lives there that takes care of all the visitors. It's actually pretty big. That looks small, but it goes way in the woods and curves around. It's like a big letter C shape.
So it's a station for what?
It's a research station that scientists stay in as they study the forest.
It looks pretty nice.
Yeah, that's inside. This lady came to talk to us. She was a scientist. It's pretty boring. There's our bunks where we stay. This place can house about 30 people. That's a kid. He's the child of one of the families that takes care of the place. He was pretty funny. He'd run around naked most of the time. They had a rooster tied to a rope. I don't know. They were waiting to eat him, I guess. I don't know what they were. There's the rainforest there. And every day about 3 p.m. the clouds would descend. And it's weird. They call this a cloud forest, not a rainforest, because it hardly ever rains, but it's cloudy every day. And the trees get the moisture from the clouds. Whoops. This thing's supposed to skip. I guess I have to reopen this.
So why did HyperStudio stop?
I don't know.
It's like
You know? Because Microsoft.
It's like Betamax versus VCR. They
Yeah.
lost. I don't know how to. Close? Okay, I have to reopen it each time. Here's the second set. I thought it switched from one to the other, but I guess not. Okay, so here's the clouds descending into the rainforest. And it got real cloudy and foggy. And when the clouds come down, you can't see hardly. So it's foggy the rest of the afternoon, so you can't do anything. You have to do everything before 3 p.m. Here we went on a hike. You can see all these trees. See how they're covered with the epiphytes? Epiphytes are plants that live on top of other plants. And every tree was just covered with them. We're hiking. There's me on a rock next to a stream. Looked good back then, didn't it? We're crossing a log bridge, and there's a line you see. You had to hang on to that line as you cross the bridge. People were slipping. There's like 100 feet below that log. You could fall to your death. Pretty scary. That was a lady with another teacher. She kind of had a crush on me, I think. She's always following me around. More jungle and forest. There's a waterfall we went to. There's me in front of the waterfall. We hung out at this waterfall. This guy got in the waterfall. It was real cold. We laughed at him. See everybody laughing at him? So anyway, that's a cool waterfall. Look at all the algae around it. It's just real wet there everywhere. I mean, this is actually moss and algae. There's a lot of moss there. There's our group. I didn't know any of these people. I just kind of went tag along with them. There's me, and look at the big mushrooms. Vines hanging down everywhere. Look at that. That's a bromeliad. It's a cool flower.
Is it poisonous?
No, I don't think so. Little flies come pollinate them. There are all kinds of stuff like that. You get lost in these woods, you're dead, by the way. You got to be careful. Because if you get off the trail, which we did a couple of times, we saw something, we went to look at, a flower or something, and we're like, wait a second. If you don't find that trail again, then that's it. It was kind of scary. They asked you, they told you not to leave the trail and always be with other people. That's a tree fern. You have these giant tree ferns there. That was way up. The camera makes it look like it's closer. Hey, those are liverworts. Little plants that are kind of rare around here. Neat kind of fern.
Were there any
There's a big bromeliad, a big epiphyte.
were there any predators you don't have to worry about?
There were not. There weren't any hardly any insects in this place either, which we thought there were going to be a bunch of insects, but because of the altitude, it limits the insects for some reason.
So do you have to take malaria stuff or anything?
No malaria at that altitude.
Wow.
Again, because of the lack of insects.
Yeah.
There were no mosquitoes that carried it. Which is one of the reasons why I went to this rainforest and not one that has all the insects and malaria.
Yeah.
This was a lot. It had all the plants, but it didn't have the animals. Those are some more touched ferns. Whisk ferns, I think is what they're called. This is a group. We took a hike up to this place called the Ariba Trail, and it went all the way up on top of a mountain. And we were the only 4 people that would do it because it was a brutal hike. And that's what it looked like from the top. Is a little ledge of rock that goes out like that, and it's just straight down. I'm taking that picture like straight down. And then the clouds came in right when we got there. We almost got there too late. It took us all day to get up there. We started like 6 in the morning. We got there like 2:30, and then at 3 the clouds came down, so you couldn't see. But that's me. I almost fell off the Ariba Trail. It's a fake falling picture. I'm actually standing on a ledge. But those are trees way down there below me. Look how far down that is. I risked my life for that picture. So there it is. After the clouds come in, you can't see anything. And a lot of time, we didn't only spend it in the rainforest. We came down to the little towns and rode around. This is a little school in one of of the towns near the rainforest that we went to visit. That's the bathroom for the school there. Outhouses. And we took a bus. We got on this cattle carrier. Took us to this little town that make coffee. And they showed the guys making coffee. And the coffee there, like a little bag of coffee that would cost you like 30 cents, sells for like $10 in America.
Really?
And I mean, it's like this really nice Ecuador coffee is like Colombia and Ecuador, the big coffee. And so there are people who, they just transport coffee back and forth. They buy the coffee, and then they fly to America and sell it, fly back, and that's their job. Isn't that neat?
But they make a lot of money.
Yeah, they probably do. Most of the people at this trip bought coffee and took it home with them. It's really good coffee. I don't drink coffee, so I didn't really care much for it.
Did you
I
give it a
gave
shot?
some to my mom. Hey, we went to these pools. These pools are geothermally heated because this is a volcanic region of Ecuador, and like I showed you the volcanoes. So all those pools are warm, and they're different pools for different levels of warmth that you want. They mix it with cool water, and so there's pools that are so hot that you can hardly get in them. And then as you go from one pool to the other, it gets gradually cooler. And then there are some that are just cold. And so you can go to whatever pool you wanted to. It's pretty cool. There are people playing in the pool. We crossed this little river. We had to cross on this log, and people were falling off, and it was a big mess. But anyway, look, people are shimmying across because one guy fell and hurt himself. So everybody shimmied after that. And everybody's shorts were real black because of all the algae that was on this log. I just walked over it after everybody finished because I could tell the guy that fell was just kind of he just didn't have very good balance. Anyway, they keep bears there, and the bears, see, they're going extinct because people hunt the bears and kill them and eat them and sell their fur. And so they have this area where they keep the bears and they mate them, and then they take care of the cubs until they're big enough to release them. And so they're trying to bring the bear population back, but it's hard. It's a real poor area. And you see a bear, if you kill a bear and get its meat and sell it, you can make money that way.
It's a good picture.
Yeah, there's a big volcano in the back. That volcano.
Is that Cotopaxi, or is that?
I don't know which one that is. That's a good question. There were 3 or 4 of them. That Cotopaxi was one of them. I don't know if that's it or not. This is the inside of a volcano. It's filled with water. The caldera, where in the middle it's full of water, and that water is like 800 feet deep. Wow. And we got in a boat and we rode around it. Here we are getting in the boat that rides around inside this volcano. Hey, that was the lady that liked me there. I wonder what she is now. We go around. This is a little town. What was the name of this town? It had a huge market that's real famous. Their kids were playing basketball. Worst basketball players I've ever seen. I mean, I would be like Michael Jordan there. They didn't run or anything. They all stand in place. Just throw the ball up. And I was there with a basketball coach, one of the guys in our group, and he and I played some basketball with him. We were like champs. Here's the last bit of pictures here. We went to this big market. This was an animal market. They sell animals. You can just go up and buy an animal, you see. Every week they come out with their animals. And you could buy whatever you wanted. And I was asking about this cow here. That's me. Kind of checking out the cow. And this lady, I couldn't speak Spanish, so I didn't know how much it was. But anyway, I didn't buy a cow.
You should have.
Their market, see, they don't have, this is how they grocery shop. They don't have like supermarkets there. Interesting stuff if you ever want to go to Ecuador.
Yeah.
Let me know and I can hook you up with the group that I went with. They go every year. They're from Atlanta, private school. Love it. Love it in Atlanta, yeah. It's their deal. That little research station is partially funded by that school.
Wow.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, we're supposed we should do that this
You
summer.
Go?
What about you? Do you
I'm
wanna
not going. No, I've already done.
wanna go somewhere else? Wanna go to Africa?
I'm going all over the place.
Yeah.
a one-time thing?
That was a one-time
Make
thing
it
Yeah.
for me, but it'd be cool for you to go.
Where else?
Cheap.
So where are you going next? Exotic.
This summer?
Yeah.
Oh, exotic? I don't know. But I'm going this summer. I'm going.
Go to Paris.
I'm going
Actually,
to.
with all the stuff going on now, I don't know.
All over, it's all United States.
Yeah.
Colorado and New Mexico and Kansas City,
Boy.
Tampa, doing